It's an interesting question, and we don't hear an answer from the politicians, but we are beginning to hear from security officials speaking off the record when they're discussing the possibility of a ceasefire. And they say a ceasefire at this stage is not in Israel's interests because they think that Israel is powering ahead militarily. And they say they won't agree to a ceasefire unless Hezbollah pulls back behind the Litani River. That was the old requirement that wasn't enforced after the 2006 war, and also that it dismantles all its military equipment and strongholds that it has in South Lebanon on the Israeli border. I guess what Israel is saying, if Hezbollah won't do that, that's what its military operation is aiming to do. And they've provided some video of, for example, a tunnel that went from South Lebanon under the border, under Israel, so 25 metres in Lebanon, 10 metres under Israeli territory. So that's what we are hearing as an option. Interestingly, there was always what Hezbollah wanted, which was a link back to Gaza, and now we're seeing something else, which is Hezbollah more or less saying, OK, we might consider some sort of deal, ceasefire deal not linked to Gaza, and Israel, or sources within Israel, especially the Mossad, saying, actually, it would be better if we did a total deal, that if we end the war in Lebanon, there's also some kind of mechanism for the release of hostages and the end of the war in Gaza. You know, can the Mossad sell that to the Israeli government? I don't know. But it's very interesting that you hear all the positions being reversed and that you hear that this is what's coming out of the diplomatic track.
There is a phone call today between Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the US President Joe Biden, much touted. First time they've spoken since August is what I'm hearing. You, of course, will confirm or deny that. Can you shine any further light on what they've been speaking about?
It is, I mean, most significant about this conversation is that it was had at all, frankly, because, as you say, weeks and weeks of no conversation. And then the Defence Minister, Yoav Gallant, was meant to be on his way to Washington, a meeting that Washington demanded, actually, because he's their point man, if you like, in this government. And then he was grounded, that word used by the Israeli media, which is something that we usually use for parents grounding teenagers. Anyhow, he was grounded by the Israeli Prime Minister, didn't fly last night. And one of the conditions that Benjamin Netanyahu put was that he would speak with the president, with Joe Biden first. So he did speak with the president, with Joe Biden and with Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee, as we know. And what was on the table is what Washington always wants to know from Israel. What is your end game in Lebanon? What are your plans for Iran? And that's super relevant to Washington, because whatever Israel's plans for Iran are, Israel can't carry them out alone. It needs American support, and Washington wants details. That's why they wanted Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, in Washington yesterday, actually today now, and they didn't get that. So this was a preliminary conversation. And if you believe Bob Woodward, you know, his book wasn't just about Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. It was also about the US president and the Israeli prime minister. And the US president was using some very direct language, making demands of Israel's Prime Minister, of Benjamin Netanyahu, and showing great dissatisfaction with him. So I don't know how they weathered that as well, if Bob Woodward is right.
Irris Makler, as always, thank you for joining us and giving us that insight that we value so much from the region. Thank you, Irris Makler, our correspondent in Jerusalem.